From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Good morning, or good evening rather, and welcome to Ask the Attorney. I'm Amy Rao Mohan here along with Kevin Kennedy.
We got a little mixed up
I
right
know,
off
I
there.
kind of
That's okay.
forgot.
We're glad to be here.
And thanks so much for being here for Ask the Attorney, your chance to ask us any type of legal question that you have. Kevin Kennedy here from the Kennedy Law Firm, ready to answer those questions.
Yeah, it's good to be with you tonight, and so we hope that you'll call in. We love to share. You know, one of the great things about having a legal education is it affects everyone, and it may not necessarily affect you today, but sometime in your life, I guarantee you, it will affect you. And you know, when we have problems in the family or in the church, in the community, one of the greatest things you can share is a little wisdom or knowledge, because it can just ease your nerves. It can just bring you some hope. It can bring you some peace. Many restless nights come from legal problems. I remember 20 years ago, I used to ask myself, what's worse, medical problems or legal problems? And let me tell you, some days the legal problems are far worse than the medical problems.
That's true. We want you to call that number at the bottom of your screen. It's 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. And we do want to just take a moment. The News Channel 5 family did lose a great member of the family today, Mark Bellinger, and so many great memories of him. I remember when I came to the newsroom in 2004, he had already been here for 11 years, and he was kind of the old guy on the block, taught me a lot. We went to a lot of ComStat meetings together, sat through those, and I very distinctly remember him telling me how proud he was of me going to law school.
Yes.
And so I will always cherish that with Mark, and we're going to try to show you a few pictures later if that's possible. But
well, Mark Bellinger, he has a name that is, everyone will know it just as soon as they hear that name, and it's one of those situations. All of us have a time clock. It's kind of like that dash. You know, we're born, and then there's a dash, and there's a dash. And so I guess today's a good day to reflect over. We celebrate his life, and then what are we really doing with our life right now while we're still in the dash?
That's true. And our thoughts and prayers are with his wife, Cindy, and daughter, Anna. It's hard to think what they're going through right now, but I'm glad that they have so much support behind them.
Amen.
Again, that number is 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We've got D'Angelo this evening. Hi, D'Angelo.
Hey, how are you doing?
Fine.
Yes, I have a current situation going on where I have a claim for being wrongfully imprisoned.
Okay.
And I'm the judge. Would you consider me being wrongfully imprisoned if I was given back days on the sentence and the charge was dismissed 6 years later?
Well, that's a really fascinating kind of situation, because that's completely unusual for someone to try to go back and dismiss the case 6 years later.
Yeah, that seems very
and then
unusual.
give you time back for the time that you spent in jail. You know, when you raise this up, what is false imprisonment? You know, a lot of times if someone were to try to hold you against your will, you could be charged with that. Some of the things that we have seen over the years is absolutely people get lost in the system. You know, one older lawyer told me, he said, if you're defending these cases, Kevin, you don't really want swift justice, because sometimes the witnesses leave, sometimes they lose the warrant, sometimes subpoenas don't get issued. So he said that the time was always on the side of the defense. So I heard that, and so what's happened to you, sir? Yes, I've had at least 3 in my career that they just forgot and lost the papers and left people incarcerated for a period of time. And you know, we still hear about the lawsuits where people have been wrongfully accused, and they go back
malicious
and
prosecution.
Yeah, and I'll address that. What is malicious prosecution? That's where somebody just goes out and tells a complete lie on you. You're arrested, charged, embarrassed, humiliated, taken through the process. When those charges are dismissed, you do have a legal right to bring a lawsuit against it. Now, your DA and the judges, people come and say, well, I want to sue the district attorney, and I want to. Well, there's a thing in Tennessee law that says they have judicial immunity. So it's out there. It comes from the common law where we could not sue the king. King made the laws. You can't sue the king. So that's still some there. But if there's a private prosecutor and they say, well, I'm going to charge you, and I'm going to say you raped me, or I'm going to say you did this, hold on. Because when this is cleared, you've got one of the meanest lawsuits on you, and you could end up filing bankruptcy over one of those.
Yeah, I think there's a movement across the country to sort of increase the strength of these wrongful incarceration statutes too,
Yes.
to people who can get compensated if they have been
Yes.
wrongly incarcerated.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got Baker here. Hi, Baker. Baker, are you with us? Baker?
Did you hit the hand-free mute?
Well, Linda, are you here?
I'm here.
All
Okay,
right,
great,
sorry, Linda.
Go ahead.
What causes or what are the reasons a will would have to go through probate?
Okay. Well, first off, if you have a will and someone passes away, it should go through probate. It's like a 6-month process. Why do you do that? Because once you publish the will, that's probate the will, you let the whole world know this person is deceased and this is what their assets are and who their assets are going to, the issue. And usually it goes to their children or someone else. And if someone has a claim against the estate, they have a period of time to file their claim. If they don't, they're forever barred. So you could say, well, golly, I loaned him $50,000 and he died, and I never knew anything about it. Well, if you never ran through probate, that could still come back and bite you. If you go through probate, they didn't file their claim, you're home free, and that money would be yours. So as a general rule, always write a will. A holographic will is legal in Tennessee. That's where you have to write it out in your own handwriting, sign it with your signature, but we don't ever recommend that as lawyers. And then when you find the will, put it in a safe place so someone can find it and probate the will.
And I know we've gotten calls before. Is there any way to avoid probate altogether?
Sometimes, they are selling living trust, and so living trust is a way to avoid probate. It's not necessarily always the best because everyone's situation is a little different. And many times, if there are no assets to probate the will, and we've seen that many times where there's no assets, then you really, you might try to go to the courthouse and get a short form and see if you can get things done like that. Meaning if there's just a minimum amount of money in a bank account. And also, when you're doing this, if that deed is this, my mother and father own the house, my mother died, it is my father's, by operational law, tenants by the entirety in the state of Tennessee. Well, then how do my brothers ever get that property in our name? You have to probate the will. Because otherwise they say, well, we own it, it's clear. That's true. But how are you going to sell it? Mm-hmm. Because you need the probate court to give you a deed, and then you can go on and sell it to anybody you want to.
Right, good advice there. A lot of people need that. We've got Baker here. Good evening, Baker.
Good evening. I was just want to ask him what he thinks about last night's program on Channel 5 Plus with Ben Hall talking about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and who he thinks would be the best candidate for office in the highest lane.
Wow.
He thinks Donald Trump would be best or Hillary Clinton?
I
Well,
will
thank
let you get into that, Kevin.
Yeah, I didn't get to see Ben Hall, but Ben Hall is a great guy and loves to think about it. What we've seen in the country is a transition. Here in Tennessee, for years, Democrats dominated Tennessee. Say 20 years ago, it was open and shut. And then we've seen it swing. Well, what brought in this transition? And many things that came out of Washington and so many issues now. What are the Republicans' platform? It's interesting you asked the question. I remember when I was in college, I have a degree in political science. And so in the recent years, I use my formulas that I've been trained in and educated in. And guess what I've learned? No formula works right now. So it's a whole lot of things that we just share. But I want to encourage people to vote. You have to evaluate. You've already voted?
I did today.
I haven't yet. And what I look at, I am a person that wants to stand on the Constitution. And I do believe, I also have a master's degree in history. I taught history at the university. And one of the things that's never far in the back of my mind is that history repeats itself. And so we are here. And so what can we do except everything rises and falls on leadership? So what I would say to you, you've seen the debates, you've heard them. Who do your values and your ideas most align with? And if that's whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, I encourage you. Now, what I always like to say is come back to we're all Americans when it's all said and done. And anyone who's anti-American, hello, come in. I'm not going there because, you know, we're very interested in the generations and generations and generations to come. We're now the oldest democracy in history. There's always been a rise and a fall of the Roman Empire. So, you know, I watch all this, and I'm always scared of debt. And I do know this, that I do know that someday there's a tipping point for a family, for an individual, for a state or a country. If we keep riding in debt, one day there'll come a time that we couldn't turn it around.
Kevin, I think you could also be a politician because you very gracefully did not answer his question, which
now,
I don't blame you.
That is the lawyer coming out in her. You know, they always said when we were working on that, they said, well, a smart lawyer will know how to explain this. And then when I was getting my master's degree, they said, well, what about this? And then I remember I turned around and asked a question in response to the question. And they said, wow. And so, touche to you, Miss Amy. Well, thank you for the question. I love that. I love to expound on politics.
Well, we are definitely here to take more questions, so call that number at the bottom of your screen. We will take a quick break, and we'll be back with Kevin Kennedy after this.